Welcome into Rock Solid Sports on Friday night, sponsored by The Hill Bar and Grill, located in the Fort Sanders area at the corner of 12th Street and Forest Avenue. The Hill Bar and Grill is a bar, restaurant, and cater with wings, burgers, tacos, and more, with dining indoors or their expanded outdoor patio area with curbside pickup also available. More info at thehillknocks.com or on their social media. I'm your host, Chloe, here with Keegan and Keithan in the studio. Over on StreamYard, we got Tucker, and down at the Hill Bar and Grill, we have Devin. Devin, can you hear us? Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to figure that out, but we'll get back to him in a minute. Once again, he is at our sponsor for tonight, the Hill Bar and Grill, and definitely huge shout out to the Hill for sponsoring tonight's show. Alongside me, I got Keegan. Keegan, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Happy to be back here on the Friday show. Obviously, I wasn't on last week, so I missed that Missouri preview and interview you guys did. But I heard that was good, and I'm excited to be here to kind of preview this second to last weekend of Tennessee regular season football.
I have to agree. I'm excited to be here as well. It'd be pretty fun to get to talk about the Vols again this weekend. So that's what I'm pretty much looking forward to.
For sure. And over on StreamYard, we have Tucker. Tucker, what about you?
Yeah, I'm glad to be here as well. I mean, I'm home right now, as you guys can probably tell. I'm headed to the beach tomorrow, but yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's matchup against South Carolina. Should be a fun one.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, Devin, are you able to talk? Okay. Um, that's okay. Once again, we'll get back to him in just a minute. Right now, let's get into the discussion with the South Carolina game. Talking some Tennessee football tomorrow, second to last regular season game for the Vols at South Carolina, down in South Carolina, and it's a homecoming season for not season homecoming game for Jalen Hyatt, who's actually from like 20 minutes away from South Carolina's campus, which is pretty interesting. I'm sure you guys knew that.
And he did not get an offer from South Carolina,
No.
so maybe a little vengeance there. Who knows?
Yeah. So, but we're glad, right? Like we're glad he's here with us now. So yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be a fun game. The homecoming games are always good to see athletes go back to where they're from because there's usually typically a lot of their family and things like that there. But yeah, about South Carolina.
Coming off a big loss to Florida last
Right,
week,
38-6,
and obviously Tennessee coming off that big bounce back win against Missouri. It's an interesting spot for sure. I think the South Carolina team's a little hungry, but they're a little defeated too. They came into the season with Spencer Rattler at the helm, kind of thinking he was going to be the guy for them, and they might be, a top half of the SEC team, and that just hasn't really panned out for them this season. I think they'll be a little hungry going in this game. As Chloe mentioned, it's homecoming. There's some vendettas going on here, but Tennessee just needs to take care of business, and I think it's a spot where maybe South Carolina plays a little close, but I think Tennessee's offense is still going to get it going tomorrow.
I have to agree. I think Tennessee will bid off of what they did last week. Obviously, this will be a road test as the next two games will be on the road. But I feel like with what they did last week against the nation's 14th ranked defense, I feel like that builds on to the confidence that they do. And this team, they looked very hungry last week, like they're trying to prove a point that they're one of the top four teams in the nation. So I feel like they're going with a lot of confidence and a lot of determination to try to get that last spot.
Yeah, and Keith, and about that point about them being hungry, what did you kind of think of? I think this has been something to talk about this week of Tennessee kind of punching in that touchdown at the end of the game. There's been a little controversy around that, whether we should have just kneeled it or whatever. I think us punching it showed we're hungry, showed we're trying to show that, we're this dominant offense and we're stopping nothing to win. Were you fine with that touchdown, or do you think it was a little too much at the end there?
I'm very fine with that touchdown because at the end of the day, we were in with our second group, and as we shown, when Cedric Tillman went down, guys had to step up. So with that being said, I feel like we weren't doing anything but running our offense, and then if that caused us to get touchdowns, then I guess that just happens. But it just gives these guys more experience and reps in the offense. So later down the road, if something was to happen,
I'm in the same boat. I mean, it's football. You play the game until the clock hits zero. We're not here to spare anybody's feelings.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely hoping for a huge win for the Vols. Missouri beat South Carolina when they were number 25, 23-10. So based on last week based on last week's game against Missouri. I'm I'm feeling pretty good about this game, although it is in Columbia. Tucker, any thoughts on the South Carolina game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is going to be close at all. Really, I mean, South Carolina's without their two running backs. They're Marshawn Lloyd, Christian Beal Smith. It was announced, I believe, yesterday that they were out for this game, so that's going to be rough for them. Spencer Rattler has almost as many touchdowns as he does interceptions, which is not a good thing. And this is a South Carolina defense that has really been banged up all year. So I think Tennessee's looking to take advantage of that. And of course, with Hyatt, growing up 15 minutes away, I think he's definitely out for revenge, especially after not getting offered by his hometown school.
Yeah, for sure. But like I said, we're glad to have Jalen. We're definitely glad to have Jalen Hyatt here, and I think these last two games are going to be a pretty good way to end the season. We usually end it with Vandy. That's coming next week as well. I am kind of sad it's two away games though in a row, just because I like to have like the very last game, although it usually is cold. I am missing being in Neyland already because the season came so fast with so many home games. Like the schedule had so many home games all at once, and then the end was just a lot of away games. So
Yeah, I'm not sure it's all about the home games necessarily. I just think it's the fact that they loaded us up on the back end with away games. They decided to stick South Carolina later than usual, which is odd. It's usually either the first weekend of November or like last weekend of October. So they've definitely done some shifting with the schedule that made it that way.
I don't necessarily mind this last game being away, especially since it pretty much every year falls during Thanksgiving. So you don't really have the full student advantage of these games anyway. So I don't have as big of a complaint there. Maybe having this game at home this weekend would have been nice, but not a huge complaint. But I did want to hop back to what Tucker was saying about their defense. Letting up 228 passing yards a game, which isn't terrible. In the SEC, that's not a super high number. Do we? I mean, I assume we expect Hendon Hooker to go well over that. Tucker, what do you think Hendon Hooker's kind of passing numbers are going to look like this week? And do you think how big of a statement do you think he needs to make in this game to kind of keep his Heisman campaign going?
Well, it has to be big if he needs to make a statement because, look, a road win is everything for this team. Of course, we know they struggled on the road against Georgia to throw the football. Now, South Carolina does not have the athletes Georgia has. I mean, that's just the point. I mean, they do not have nearly the talent on the defensive side of the ball. So, yeah, I don't think South Carolina has a guy like Keely Ringo that can just go up against your best receiver and shut him down. So, I think the numbers are going to be looking very nice for Hendon Hooker tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I would assume Hyatt will get free a few times. I think it's a matter of is Hooker going to hit those passes today? Because obviously against Georgia, I mean, they played a good defense, but Hyatt was getting open downfield, and Hooker wasn't hitting him. I think it felt like he corrected that last week to a certain extent. He did miss a few throws. There were a couple bad misses, to be honest, but it was not as egregious as the Georgia game.
Yeah, Keegan, one thing about that, I think Hyatt was, partially to be blamed for that because I think he had a few drops in that game as well. That should have been pretty easy catches for scores.
Yeah, like three. Didn't he have like three in a row at some point?
Yeah, three drops. It was really bad. But Brew McCoy went over 100 yards last week too, so he's another bruiser that I think that Tennessee could really use to take advantage of this South Carolina secondary.
I hope so as well. College football playoffs. Tennessee is still number 5, projected to going into that under TCU, Michigan, Ohio State, and Georgia. Sorry, total brain fart. So how do we feel about this? Because I know how I feel about it, but I'll let you guys go first.
Well, I mean, it's a clear spot, right? Tennessee is at number 5. If TCU plays Baylor tomorrow, they have one more game. I'm not positive what that last regular season game is.
We'll talk about the more college games here.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. But they have a couple games left, as well as the championship game, which is most likely, I'm not sure if it's guaranteed yet, but most likely going to be against Kansas State. If TCU loses one of those 3 games, Tennessee is guaranteed a lock in the playoffs because Michigan and Ohio State play each other. And Georgia, unless they lose to LSU, is in that championship game as well. So I think Tennessee's in a very good spot. The only way Tennessee doesn't make it into this playoff is the freak scenario where TCU loses out, or sorry, TCU wins out, not loses out. TCU wins out, so they're locked in at 3, and somehow LSU beats Georgia. I think that's the only scenario where Tennessee could be left as that one man out. But as long as we're going up against a one-loss team that's not LSU beating Georgia, even though they're actually a two-loss team, but we can get into that later. I think Tennessee's, I would give them an 80% chance to get in if they beat if they beat South Carolina and Baylor.
One thing that's interesting, it'll be an interesting matchup to see this weekend as well, will be Illinois playing against Michigan. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with Illinois, but Illinois has a really stout defense. They've been, I don't know the average, but you look over the last couple games, they lost last week against Michigan State, but holding opponents to 23 points, 9 points, 14, 6, 10, 0, 3, 20. So that being said, they're 7-3 right now. Obviously, Michigan is undefeated, but it'll be interesting to see how if they will be able to control or contain Blake Corum and see how that game will go.
Yeah, that's an interesting spot. Obviously, Illinois started off really strong. I think that Michigan State game, I'm a Michigan State fan, so I was very excited to see that win. But I think that showed me that Illinois is a fraud because Michigan State has not been all that good this year. But with that being said, I'm not ruling out your scenario there where they beat Michigan. That's an interesting spot, I think, because if they beat Michigan and Michigan somehow Michigan goes into Columbus and beats Ohio State, that's a weird conversation. I think that's definitely not something a lot of people have been having is what happens, if Michigan and Ohio State both have one loss. Tucker, do you have anything on that? I know you guys were talking about some playoff stuff in your football show.
Yeah, I don't see this one really
a one-loss Big Ten team at all.
Yeah, I think a one-loss Big Ten team would have to make it. It kind of feels like because Ohio State and Michigan are really just on a collision course with one another. The Big Ten West is just a mess. Let's just face it. And then Illinois going to Michigan too. I don't like that matchup at all for them. Just the way they've been playing down the stretch. Of course, they lost to Purdue last week, so. And that literally everybody in the Big Ten West is just a different version of the same team as far as records go. I mean, they're all either 7-3, 6-4. Just nobody's wanting to stick out from the rest of the pack. So I think a one-loss Big Ten team is definitely something that we're going to see, and it's not really something that I think Tennessee's going to be able to get around trying to get into the college football playoff.
For sure. And Chloe, you
so
said,
yeah.
Yours.
In Chloe's world, Tennessee, and in what I think would be the right world, Tennessee is number 2 behind Georgia because I actually had to make a video about this for my class.
I mean, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, that's how it should be. Because Tennessee should be number 2 behind Georgia because TCU struggled against an unranked Texas team, first of all. So that just completely takes them completely off the list for me. Obviously, Tennessee lost to Georgia, so Georgia can be above us. Michigan has really played. Michigan is a good team, but they have the best team they've played is Penn State, which they're number 24, right? I think they're number 24 right now.
Yeah, you're right about the SOS stuff, Chloe. I mean, Michigan and Ohio State really haven't played anybody outside of Penn State this year.
Except for Penn State. So there's Ohio State for you. And I think that Tennessee's wins mean more than a win. The wins Tennessee's brought in this year, I think definitely mean more and should count for more than just a win against Penn State. Also, LSU is right behind us, who we absolutely demolished in Death Valley.
We're the sole reason they're not making the playoff.
I agree with you in principle, but if you're just looking at it on paper, you see, okay, here's Team A. They have one loss, but it's to the number 1 team in the country, and they have a couple great wins. Here's Team B. They have 0 losses. They have a couple good wins, but no great wins. But they have a conference championship under their belt in arguably the second best conference in the country. I think it's hard to say that Team A should go above Team B. I mean, it doesn't matter though, because if you're 2 or 3, you play. I mean, if arguing 2 or 3 doesn't really matter. If it's us or Ohio State 2 or 3, flip it either way. We're playing each other on a neutral site either way. So I don't know if it matters that much, but I think it's hard to make that argument if you are undefeated and win your conference.
Well, if you think we played TCU right now, who do you think would win?
Does Hendon Hooker get hurt weirdly in the first quarter of the game or something?
No.
It's going to be an all-out offensive battle if it happens, I would say, because TCU can only outrun teams. Although, maybe last week they proved that they can defend a little bit, but overall, just as far as consistency on defense, it would be an all-out offensive war, and it'd be a flip of a coin in my eyes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, if you didn't get my joke, basically every quarterback's gotten hurt against TCU. I think it's been 4 or 5, which is insane. But no, I think I agree with you. I think it would be
That's
kind
the
of
strategy.
This offensive, a high scoring matchup, and I definitely think Tennessee would win that game. But again, we're not arguing eye test here. Should that be a part of it? Yes, but I think this committee, when it comes down to these teams, they're all these top 5 teams. They're all going to be elite level teams. You got to take what they have on paper. Now, with that being said, I think if we're talking about TCU, maybe we can move into this other college football stuff.
Yeah, let me see if we have Devin really quick.
Yeah.
Devin? Okay, I guess not. Give us a little bit more time on that. That was, we'll check in with him later when we're absolutely sure. Anyways, moving into the games of the week that aren't Tennessee, we have not too many right now.
Yeah, it's
not many SEC games, especially.
Not a fantastic slate this weekend.
Yeah.
I think.
I guess we'll start with TCU Baylor, though.
Yeah, so I think talking about the slate as a whole, I think it looked a lot better a couple weeks ago when you thought maybe this TCU Baylor game would be something that could decide what's going on in the Big 12. And you look at those 2 Pac-12 matchups we'll get to in a second. They both look like they could have big implications and don't as much anymore. But on the TCU matchup, I mean, this is a weird game for me. So TCU's favored by only 2.5 points in this game. Baylor's coming off a horrific 31-3 loss. TCU coming off a huge road win against Texas. TCU seems to have all the momentum here, but it's interesting. I think there are definitely people looking at this like a trap spot, and I think there's people that have TCU in their death pool. They're like, TCU is going down at some point. I'm betting on them to lose every week. At some point, it's going to happen, and I think TCU is going to keep burning these people. Is TCU the best team in the country? Definitely not. But are they the best team in the Big 12? I think by far. I think they handle business with Baylor quite easily, and they keep rolling on to that Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, it's really weird with TCU and Baylor because it's a great rivalry between these two, the 2 Texas Christian schools. Ironically, the one that has Christian in the name is not nearly as Christian as the other one, but Baylor. I don't see a skill player on this Baylor offense that really could cause trouble for TCU. I think we could be dealing with what is going to be a pretty similar game to what we saw last week, and that just eyesore of a game in Austin where, neither team really gets it going offensively because Baylor is a very good defensive team. Dave Aranda, masterclass defensive coach. So I think TCU could definitely come away with this one and survive in the Big 12. And by the way, that last game that they play is Iowa State, who's just been a disappointment this year. They're 4-6. So I don't really see a way TCU loses this weekend.
Yeah, and all my previous comments, you got that one picked up. It is Kansas State pretty much. So it's Kansas State, TCU in the Big 12 championship unless something freaky happens. TCU's locked, but Kansas State could get pushed out. You got anything on this one, Chloe?
Yeah, this is definitely although I do think Tennessee, not Tennessee. I do think TCU has this one, is going to win this one, but I think that this is going to be definitely the top game to talk about like we're doing right now. It's the game of the week for me if I had to pick, just because like you said, the in-state rivalry, and I think that unranked Baylor does have a chance in this one, but I don't know. I still TCU will probably end up winning, but I'm still going to be excited about looking forward to watching it on TV, and hopefully it'll be a close and fun game. And if TCU loses, I think that will be exciting.
Yeah, and I think the other games we should talk about, I kind of alluded to earlier, these 2 Pac-12 games, and we can kind of group this into one conversation that's kind of just a Pac-12 conversation. You have USC versus UCLA in the Rose Bowl, and then Utah and Oregon going on at 10:30. These are 2 top top 16 matchups. UCLA has 2 losses, USC has 1 loss, Oregon and Utah both have 2 losses. So the Pac-12 is kind of just in this weird place where they've sort of eaten each other alive, right? And I think of these 2 matchups, obviously this USC UCLA matters more, because if UCLA beats USC, the Pac-12 is done. They're dead. They have 4 top 16 teams, and not one of them make the playoffs. So they had just eaten alive at each other. The other one's Utah Oregon. Oregon was looking unbeatable after that Georgia loss, and unfortunately they got taken down. Well, unfortunately for them, not for us. They got taken down. Now they take on Utah in Oregon. I think UCLA has a very good chance in that USC UCLA game, and that's the one that matters. I think UCLA takes down USC, and the Pac-12's dead, done, over. I also like Oregon to bounce back and beat Utah, but I think Pac-12 come Sunday morning is dead.
Yeah, Keegan, I'm on the same page with you here. I mean, USC, UCLA, I could see that one being another case where the Pac-12 eats itself up. I mean, we talked about this in Hardwood Hot Takes all the time. That's all that conference does is eat itself alive. So I just think, Lincoln Riley's disbelief in wanting to play defense is something that's going to cost him eventually. And I think it's going to cost him this weekend, because I think Zach Charbonnet, Dorian Thompson-Robinson are just too dangerous of offensive weapons for them to hold back. So I like UCLA to win it. And then for that Utah-Oregon game, I do like Oregon to come out and win this one, because they played twice last season. Once, I think, the second or third to last week of the season at Utah. Utah won big, and then they played in the Pac-12 championship as well. Utah won that one big as well. But the thing is, that was about the time where Mario Cristobal, the rumors were swirling with him about how he was going to go to Miami, back to his alma mater, to be the coach. So I think the team had given up in a sense at that point. I think they're going to be pretty hungry to come in here and beat Utah.
Yeah, and the Pac-12 just keeps doing this, man. I mean, 2014, was that the last time one of their teams got in?
It was 2016. Washington.
Oh, Washington got in. You're right. I do want to mention one more thing about this UCLA game. Did we see the controversy about their fake sellout?
Yeah.
UCLA claimed to sell out their stadium, said 72,000, blah, 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 sold out. If you look up the Rose Bowl capacity, it's 92,000. What they do is they have these weird tarps that say UCLA, and now those seats don't count for their college football game. So they're saying it's a sellout when there are 20,000 empty seats. I mean, that's crazy.
That's what Stanford needs to do, honestly. I mean, they're giving away free tickets to people, so that's
what Vanderbilt needs to do when we come to town, so they can keep some more Tennessee fans out.
Keithan, any opinions on these games happening this week, TCU or those over like Utah or any other games that we didn't mention yet?
One of the games that's interesting me the most, like you said, we was talking about the USC UCLA. That game is pretty interesting because I've been seeing a lot of noise, specifically from people like Keyshawn Johnson. They're talking about how USC could potentially sneak their way in to the top 4 if they win a Pac-12 championship. So like you guys said earlier, with the Pac-12 beating up on each other, it'll be interesting to see if USC, if they continue to win, what the committee would think.
Yeah, what's your opinion there? I mean, if we're sitting on selection day, let's say TCU wins out, and the top 3 is Georgia, Ohio State, TCU, and then you're looking at USC with 1 loss, but a conference championship, and then Tennessee with 1 loss, but it's the number 1 team. Who would you put in if you were the committee? Take away biases. Who do you think has the better resume in that situation?
Honestly, all bias aside, I'm still going to have to go with Tennessee, because just when you think about and look at their resume, you go into the beginning of the season, go on the road, even though this still isn't a ranked win technically, you go and beat Pittsburgh, then you go and beat Florida, which at the end of the day is a rivalry game, so rankings or not, it's still a tough game to win, even though it was at home. You beat Alabama in the shootout game. Then after you beat Alabama, who else did we play after Alabama? We beat LSU. This is in order, which LSU is currently the number 6 team.
Yeah,
so
I think that LSU win is like the stamp on the resume. That road win against the number 6 team, I agree with you.
Exactly. So when you think about that, if Georgia continues to win out, and let's say LSU was the West champion, even though Tennessee wasn't the technical SEC champion. If you look at it resume, they still beat the SEC West champion by 27.
Yeah.
And I would guess to say second place SEC West team would be Alabama. So I don't know. I'll have to go with Tennessee just by sheer.
No, I agree.
strength.
I mean, I think if any one loss or a 2-loss LSU team gets in over this Tennessee team, these Volunteer fans will riot. I heard someone joke the other day that the Tennessee fans would storm the college football playoff committee or something like that if we lost. I think it would be an insane move to keep us out against another one-loss team.
Yeah, I got one thing to say in regards to USC, and it's that they got Notre Dame after this UCLA game too. And, of course, Notre Dame lost at the beginning of the season against Stanford and Marshall. Those are two pretty terrible losses, but they've been a different team as of late. I mean, they beat both North Carolina and Clemson. Those are the two teams that will be playing for that ACC title game. And, with USC not really seeing a whole lot of great competition over the year, I think Notre Dame will pose a threat as well. So it'll make their road to the college football playoff a lot harder going up against these two on the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yep. That, like I said, it's like the final weeks of football season, but it's still super exciting, especially if your team might be playing past the end of it, right? But we're gonna get back into the show here in just a few minutes. We're gonna hear some words from our sponsors, and then we're gonna talk about the Thursday night football last night because the Titans played and also the Titans won, which is exciting. Always exciting when our home team here, Tennessee, wins. So we'll be right back to discuss some NFL. Stay tuned. You're listening to Rock Solid Sports on Volunteer Radio 90.3 The Rock. Rocking ears for 40 years.
Hey, this is Peter Case, and you're listening to 90.3 The Rock, bringing Knoxville new music first.
The Rock receives support from The Hill, Fort Sanders' destination for wings, beer, and sports, including college football every Saturday and the NFL Sunday Ticket. The Hill proudly hosts Rock Solid Sports Friday broadcast from 7 to 8 p.m. Located at 1105 Forest Avenue, just blocks from UT campus, The Hill is open 11 a.m. to 3 a.m. every day. TheHillKnox.com.
They're playing basketball.
Volunteer Radio thanks the UT Athletic Department and the men's basketball program for their support. Coach Barnes' 8th season on the hardwood includes home games against Kentucky, Vandy, and more at Thompson Bowling Arena. General public ticket info for UT basketball is at allvols.com. Student ticket info and login is at bigorangetick.utk.edu. That's TIX. Volunteer Radio says go Vols basketball.
Support for The Rock comes from Lost and Found Records, 3710 North Broadway. Lost and Found will be hosting the next Knoxville Vintage Market Sunday, November 27th from noon to 6 p.m. in the parking lot. This traveling show features fresh gear and more while helping out the planet and supporting local small businesses. And speaking of vintage, Lost and Found also has the new Rock 90 t-shirts for sale, as well as WTK caps and pint glasses. More info about the next Knoxville Vintage Market, November 27th, at Lost and Found Records is on the LNF Facebook page.
Support for WUTK comes from Fieldhouse Social, the modern sports bar next to campus at University Commons. Fieldhouse Social serves American craft fare such as burgers, wings, and more with high tops around the bar, a separate dining area, and a center lounge with leather chairs and couches in front of their 23-foot LED TV wall for Tennessee and pro sports. Fieldhouse Social has an outdoor patio with trivia twice a week and sponsors Wednesday's Rock Solid Sports. FieldhouseSocial.com.
Hi, this is Derek and Rob from the Funhouse. It was brought to our attention that our show and the things that we do could be seen as childish and not funny, sophomoric, vapid, stupid, and a complete and utter waste of time.
We strive to bring you the most entertaining radio that we're capable of each and every week.
So won't you please continue to support us and the station? Tune in every Friday night from 8 to 10 p.m. only on 90.3 The Rock. The Funhouse, syphilis free since 2013.
Stop by the Funhouse Friday nights from 8 till 10, only on 90.3 The Rock.
Congratulations to Rob and Derek, hosts of the Funhouse, for being voted Knoxville's finest radio personalities in the 2021 Blank Newspaper's Knoxville's Finest Readers Poll. Tune in Friday nights from 8 to 10 and find out why. The Funhouse, brought to you by Raven Records and Rarities, located in Happy Holler.
Climb on up, on up.
The Rock keeps the Big Orange Sports info on air thanks to support from the UT Athletic Department and the Lady Vols basketball program. Coach Kelly Harper and the Lady Vols 2022-2023 home schedule includes games against UConn, Virginia Tech, SEC foes, and more. General public ticket info is at allvols.com. Student ticket info and login is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. That's TIX. WUTK says go Lady Vols.
This is William Wild, and you're listening to 90.3 The Rock, volunteer radio, local music's best friend.
WUTK thanks Cool Beans, 1817 Lake Avenue, 1 block south of the Strip, for sponsoring and hosting the Monday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Cool Beans is the pregame and postgame location for UT football, and Knoxville's home for the NFL Sunday Ticket, Titans football on the big screen, and more. Rock Solid Sports kicks off Monday Night Football with the show's live broadcast from 7 to 8 Monday nights at Cool Beans. Cool Beans is 21 and over after 9 p.m. with a full and late night menu. CoolBeansBar.com or their Facebook page.
The Rock thanks the Knoxville Ice Bears Southern Professional Hockey League team for their support. Their 2022-2023 home ice season from October through April includes games with SPHL rivals Fayetteville, Huntsville, Roanoke, and more at the Civic Coliseum downtown. Single game and season tickets are at KnoxvilleIceBears.com or 865-525-PUCK. Rock Solid Sports features Ice Bears Wednesdays with news and updates. Volunteer Radio says go Ice Bears.
Welcome back to Rock Solid Sports on Friday night. I'm your host, Chloe, along with Keegan, Keithan, Tucker, and Devin over at the Hill Bar and Grill. Rock Solid Sports Friday night show, sponsored by the Hill Bar and Grill, located in the Fort Sanders area at the corner of 12th Street and Forest Avenue. The Hill Bar and Grill, restaurant and caterer with wings, burgers, tacos, and more, with dining indoors or their expanded outdoor patio area with curbside pickup also available. More info at thehillknox.com or on their social media. We'll get connected with Devin in just a minute, but right now we're going to get into the NFL Wait, Devin, do you have us?
Yeah, I can hear you, Chloe. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you. Okay, how is the Hill?
Okay.
How is the Hill tonight?
Okay, thank goodness. Yeah, the issue was earlier. That was really weird, but yeah, the Hill is fantastic. Lots of people coming in. They got great games on TV and an awesome matchup between Virginia and Baylor in basketball. Obviously, Virginia playing after the horrible tragedy that happened at their school with those football players, and the team, the basketball team previously canceled one of their games, but now they've decided to play this huge matchup against Baylor in Las Vegas. So a very emotional game for Virginia, and they're playing pretty hard. So it's a good game to watch, and just a great atmosphere here. And also, real quick, since I wasn't able to, say anything about, Tennessee football, I'll just say just a quick point here. I think they crushed South Carolina. Not even close. I used to think that was a trap game. I don't think it's going to be a trap at all. I think Tennessee dominates, so I'm excited for that. One thing I will say is people should hope for USC to lose, because I know that they're only, I know that they haven't had the greatest strength of schedule, but, I mean, these guys love USC. They get a ton of favoritism, and I don't even want them to have a chance to match them up against Tennessee, even though Tennessee's got the way better resume. And we should be cheering for Ohio State to beat Michigan, because when they compare Ohio State and Tennessee to each other, yes, Tennessee's still much better, but man, the committee loves Ohio State, and I don't even want to give them that chance.
Yep, all very good points. Like we said, we all got Tennessee winning, so go Vols, and hopefully it'll still be a good game to watch tomorrow. Getting into the Titans versus Green Bay versus the Packers, that was a win for the Titans, 27-17, and Green Bay, who's 4-7, the Titans, who are 7-3. How much does this mean for the Titans to get a win like this? Obviously, it was a pretty good game. Ryan Tannehill has had a pretty good game after he, came back from the injury. But how much of a win is this for the Titans, considering it is a team that's 4-7 that they beat?
Yeah, I mean, I think it means a lot. Even though Green Bay is 4-7, they're still the Green Bay Packers. They're still Aaron Rodgers. But I mean, Tennessee at this point is kind of a lock for the playoffs because of how bad their division is. But I think the more important note for this game is that tractor seat of season is back. It happens every year. The second half of the season, Derrick Henry comes in and just carries Ryan Tannehill's sorry tail to the playoffs. It's a tail as old as time. I mean, just listen to this last night. All right, on the ground, yeah, he's a running back. 87 yards, touchdown, boom. On the receiving core, 2 catches, 45 yards. In the air, 2 passes for a touchdown. I mean, the guy's throwing touchdowns. He's running for touchdowns. He's catching balls. He's just willing this Titans team to win. I mean, if they didn't have Derrick Henry, I think this team is a bottom third NFL team, and he kind of just turns this team into something else, especially for some reason the second half of the season. I heard the announcers, I think it was Herb Street last night, just saying that Derrick Henry gets stronger as the year goes on. These linebackers just keep getting weaker.
Well, Keegan, you're right about the fact that Derrick Henry gets stronger as time goes on. But what I will say is that Ryan Tannehill had a great night last night for what has been a not great season. Went over 300 yards through the air. And the biggest thing about that is Traylon Burks was back for this team. Obviously they went out and got him in the first round when they traded away AJ. Things have been pretty disappointing this year for Traylon just because of injuries and such. But we really saw what this guy can be. And it means a lot for this receiving core. And, as I was, after that horrible loss against Kansas City, I was going through the schedule, looking through games that Tennessee needed to win. And I thought that this was one of them because the Packers have just been lackluster on offense this year just because Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a lot of the talent he's accustomed to having. So big win for Tennessee.
Yeah, no, I don't think my point was to say Ryan Tannehill was bad last night. It was more about Ryan Tannehill as a whole. And I think last night, I don't know how tuned in you were, but in the second half, he throws that interception when they're up 10 points, and that just felt like a classic Ryan Tannehill moment. They were up a score or two. He throws a touchdown, then they come back, but their defense was able to hold Green Bay off and kind of omit his mistake there. So maybe that kind of says something about Tennessee as a team on the whole and on the defensive side, that they can compensate for these mistakes a little more than they have been able to in years past.
One thing that I'll say about this Titans offense, as I was thinking about the games, and it's been well documented how bad the Titans offense is when it gets to the second half of the game and how it's been all year, frankly. But one thing I just began to think about from a place calling standpoint, and then just as a quarterback, Ryan Tannehill is basically dealing with the entire new group of receivers. Like last year, he had AJ Brown, obviously, and Julio Jones. Now he's dealing with Robert Woods, who's coming off an injury, who's dealing with Traylon. Austin Hooper's coming in. So it's just a lot of guys. And honestly, with all the injuries and, with Traylon going out, this and that, I feel like it's taken a lot of time for the team to gel. But one thing that I'll say that I've been noticing a lot is it seems like Tannehill is starting to trust Austin Hooper more and more. We're starting to see it last week. Austin Hooper has just been seeming to make a lot of big catches for this team to extend drives. And that's just something that I think is going to go a long way as the season continues to go on, as they continue to get more and more chemistry. Like we said, Traylon, as Tucker said, Traylon look like he is starting to get more and more comfortable in the offense. I don't know if you guys seen after the last catch of the game, he put the little boy signal up over Jair Alexander. So it'll be interesting how the offense goes. Kyle Phillips should be coming back pretty soon. So it'll be interesting to see how these rookies and how the offense continues to grow.
Yeah, Devin, were you able to catch this game last night? Press the red button.
Well,
so sorry. I accidentally pressed the other red button. That was totally my bad there. Yeah, I actually pressed 2 there. So in any case, yeah, I mean this was a fantastic game, of course, and I think it matters a lot actually, because just a couple. Actually, no, it was just last season. Actually, I mean the Titans went into Green Bay, and lost to the Packers, and it helped secure. That was basically the game that took Derrick Henry out of the league MVP conversation, and basically handed Aaron Rodgers yet another his fourth league MVP and his second in a row. So, I think this Titans team really wanted revenge. They were locked in. It's like, oh, God, we have to go on the road again against Green Bay, again later in the season when it's freezing cold there. And they got it done. And the Packers at home, especially at this time of the year, are still a very tough team. So I consider this to be a really good win. Now the Titans are 7-3. And they got the Bengals at home next, and this is not the same Cincinnati team, and this Titans team is going to want revenge over the Cincinnati Bengals for what happened last season in the playoffs. I think the Titans dominate Cincinnati's weak offensive line. I think Jeffrey Simmons is a huge game next week, this upcoming game, and Titans go 8-3, and then they're just cruising the rest of the way because the division is weak division, and that's going to help the Titans really make a strong playoff run. And it's very exciting. What I'm curious to see is it'll be interesting to see how this current situation unfolds with Todd Downing. Obviously we heard the news about what happened. We don't have to get too far into that, but hopefully, nothing too serious is of what occurred with Todd Downing. Because he really called a masterful game against Green Bay, and I guess that's why he was just celebrating a little bit too much.
Yeah, and let me ask you guys a question here real quick before we move on from the Titans onto basketball. And that's kind of more of a macro question. As someone who's not a Titans fan, not watching them super closely, I kind of always look at this Titans team as a team that's always there in the playoffs, but never really a contender for a title in any way. Where do you guys see the ceiling for this Tennessee team being, where they're probably going to be in a position, if they win their division, where they're, in a 3 or 4 seed, playing a New England, playing a Cincinnati, playing a New York Jet, or maybe even a Buffalo Bill team? If that happens, do we see them making it out of that wild card round and even past that divisional round? Is there playoff hope for this Tennessee team, or are they kind of doomed for an early exit?
Honestly, I believe that they honestly can make a playoff push. Back to that 2019 year, we started off the year 2-4, I believe, before we even switched to Ryan Tannehill, and it wasn't a lot of hope in that season. If you go back to all the games that we played this year, honestly, we're a play or two away from being 9-1 and having a whole different perspective on this season. You go back to that Giants game. There's a lot of mistakes early. The Giants end up going for 2, and we get it down the field and end up missing the field goal. That's our first loss. Obviously, with the Bills just ran us out. Then you go to the Chiefs with a backup quarterback, Malik Willis. That was another winnable game. So, like I said earlier, I don't know if the offense these teams to continue to grow and get to like they're starting to build more chemistry. As I said, with Tannehill and Austin Hooper, how they're starting to seem like they're getting a lot more chemistry going forward. Traylon is starting to seem like he's coming into form. Chig Vrabel has said in interviews that he's trying to get him more involved, that he seems like he's versatile. And so it just seems like the team is trending in the right direction, especially with the way that the defense is playing. They'll be able to keep us in any game.
I agree with you there that they really don't have a bad loss. I mean, I think that Giants loss looked bad when it happened, but at this point, we know the Giants are good. And, I'm not necessarily writing Tennessee off here. I think they have this good resume, and on paper, they're going to look good in the playoffs. But I'm a guy who needs a guy on a team, whether that's in football with a quarterback or that's in basketball with a point guard. I think when it comes playoff time, when it comes everyone's playing at the highest level, big moment, big stage, you want your quarterback in football or your point guard in basketball to be your guy. And on the Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill is not the guy. Derrick Henry is. And I just don't see a running back taking a team to a Super Bowl in this day and age that is a pass-driven league. I just don't know that I see it happening. Could they win a playoff game or two? Yeah, but I just don't think without an elite quarterback who is your guy, you can't make a Super Bowl run.
Yeah, Keegan, I'm kind of on the same page as you a little bit here. I think Tennessee's definitely a divisional round, maybe AFC championship. That would be a stretch in my eyes. But I just think it depends on the matchup for the playoffs. Really, like if we were to play a Kansas City or a Buffalo, I don't think Tennessee would make it out. I just think there's too much talent on that end. But with teams like Cincinnati or Baltimore or even a New England that's not amazing offensively, I think that's a type of game that maybe favors Tennessee a little bit just because of how they've played. Just ground and pound. Defensively, they've been getting after it all year. So I think that's the kind of matchup that would favor Tennessee. And if they were to see one of those teams in the wild card, I think they could get through into the divisional round. But a Super Bowl, I think, is an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah, we got to move on here really quick so we can talk about some basketball. We're gonna take a short break after we just talked about NFL and the Titans, but we're gonna take a short break here so we can get into some college basketball, men and women's, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Rock Solid Sports on Volunteer Radio 90.3 The Rock, UT's College of Rock.
Hi, this is Sam Bean from Iron Awana. You're listening to UT's College of Rock, WUTK.
The Rock receives support from The Hill, Fort Sanders' destination for wings, beer, and sports, including college football every Saturday and the NFL's Sunday Ticket. The Hill proudly hosts Rock Solid Sports Friday broadcast from 7 to 8 p.m. Located at 1105 Forest Avenue, just blocks from UT campus, The Hill is open 11 a.m. to 3 a.m. every day. TheHillKnox.com.
The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department and the UT Lady Vols volleyball program for their support. The final 2 home volleyball matches at Thompson Bowling Arena for the Lady Vols this season is against Mississippi State this Saturday, November 19th at 4 p.m. and this Sunday at noon. The public is invited to attend all home matches at Thompson Bowling Arena, and more info about UT Lady Vols volleyball is at utsports.com. Keep up with UT Sports on WTK's Rock Solid Sports Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. and go Lady Vols.
The Rock thanks the Knoxville Ice Bears Southern Professional Hockey League team for their support. Their 2022-2023 home ice season from October through April includes games with SPHL rivals Fayetteville, Huntsville, Roanoke, and more at the Civic Coliseum downtown. Single game and season tickets are at KnoxvilleIceBears.com or 865-525-PUCK. Rock Solid Sports features Ice Bears Wednesdays with news and updates. Volunteer Radio says, Go Ice Bears!
WUTK thanks Cool Beans, 1817 Lake Avenue, 1 block south of the Strip, for sponsoring and hosting the Monday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Cool Beans is the pregame and postgame location for UT football, and Knoxville's home for the NFL Sunday Ticket, Titans football on the big screen, and more. Rock Solid Sports kicks off Monday Night Football with the show's live broadcast from 7 to 8 Monday nights at Cool Beans. Cool Beans is 21 and over after 9 p.m. with a full and late night menu. CoolBeansBar.com or their Facebook page.
The Rock keeps the Big Orange Sports info on air thanks to support from the UT Athletic Department and the Lady Vols basketball program. Coach Kelly Harper and the Lady Vols 2022-2023 home schedule includes games against UConn, Virginia Tech, SEC foes, and more. General public ticket info is at allvols.com. Student ticket info and login is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. That's TIX. WUTK says, Go Lady Vols.
Hey, this is Dave Damon from the American Plague, and you're listening to 9.3 The Rock of the Hill.
Support for WUTK comes from Fieldhouse Social, the modern sports bar next to campus at University Commons. Fieldhouse Social serves American craft fare such as burgers, wings, and more with high tops around the bar, a separate dining area, and a center lounge with leather chairs and couches in front of their 23-foot LED TV wall for Tennessee and pro sports. Fieldhouse Social is an outdoor patio with trivia twice a week and sponsors Wednesday's Rock Solid Sports. FieldhouseSocial.com.
They're playing basketball.
Volunteer Radio thanks the UT Athletic Department and the men's basketball program for their support. Coach Barnes' 8th season on the hardwood includes home games against Kentucky, Vandy, and more at Thompson Bowling Arena. General public ticket info for UT basketball is at allvols.com. student ticket info and login is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. That's TIX. Volunteer Radio says go Vols basketball.
Hey, this is Rob.
This is Derek.
From the Funhouse. For over a decade, we've been getting your weekend started right.
So grab a beverage or whatever it is you need to grab and tune in every Friday night at 8 o'clock.
On 90.3 The Rock, Volunteer Radio.
It's the best show in the universe.
The Funhouse, brought to you by Raven Records and Rarities at 1200 North Central Street in Happy Hollow, Knoxville. Source for new and pre-loved vinyl and more for nearly 40 years.
Welcome back into Rock Solid Sports on Friday night. I'm your host, Chloe, along with Keegan, Keithan, Tucker, and over at our sponsor for tonight, The Hill Bar and Grill, we have Devin. Devin, really quick update before we finish out the show here with some basketball. How's The Hill looking tonight?
Chloe, the Hill is looking fantastic. And speaking of college basketball, there's an awesome college basketball matchup here on. Baylor is up against Virginia 33-30 at halftime. Number 16 versus number 5 teams in the country. Incredible matchup. And I can't wait for us to get into some basketball here. I have a lot to say about both teams, particularly the women's teams, since I saw them play against Indiana.
Yeah, we're going to start off with that, actually. We're going to start off with women's against Indiana. That was, just on sheesh, wasn't I was that? That was a few days ago. That was last week.
Yeah, that was on Tuesday.
Yeah, that was on Tuesday. That was on Tuesday. You're right. That was the women's versus Indiana top 25 matchup, here on Rocky Top in Thompson Bowling Arena. Definitely some good fans there. I was there. I know Devin Huber's there as well, but Indiana did end up beating the Lady Vols in the end 79-67. And it was a very, I don't want to say rough game for the Lady Vols, but they were out rebounded again like they were with UMass. However, they did win the game against UMass, but rebounding is something that has to be there, especially for a team that they are supposed to beat, but they just didn't end up doing that. I'm not saying that Indiana, they're a very good team, so they really did deserve that win. I mean, they fought super hard, but as far as, not having Jordan Horston in there and things like that, it did not go in the Lady Vols' favor, especially with rebounding, and there was quite a few turnovers as well.
Yeah, Chloe, honestly, I mean, I am going to say that this did not look very good for the Lady Vols. And all I can say about this is it just looked like, and you might agree with me on this here, it just looked like Indiana's players were faster, were able to play the game longer before they got super tired. Like Rakia Jackson, for instance. So Rakia Jackson comes in, and when she first gets on the court, she's like the best player on the whole court for both teams. Is versatile, can move, can score, can rebound. Then 2 minutes pass by, and she's getting very tired. Like, there was one moment I remember very specifically, Tennessee goes down on offense, and she's barely moving down the court. Then Tennessee scores. I believe it might have been Powell that scores, which she was fantastic. I mean, they need to give her the ball more out from beyond the arc for sure. But then they go down the other side. Rakia Jackson is moving so slow down the court. It opens up a wide open Indiana three. And just as soon as Tennessee cuts into the lead to make it a 7-point game, all of a sudden it's a 10-point game again, which Indiana was able to basically, get out to. I mean, Tennessee could cut it down to 6, then it goes back up to 10 to 12, then it cuts back down a little bit. I mean, Tennessee could just never get into the game because they just seem to have, and I'm just going to be perfectly honest, they seem to have a lack of energy compared to Indiana and an absolute lack of hustle. And there's no, Chloe, there's no reason why Sydney Parrish on Indiana, who is, not as big as the ladies that we have on our team, there's no reason why Sydney Parrish, surrounded by multiple Tennessee Vols, should be able to go up and get these rebounds.
Right.
There's just no excuse for that. So I know Horston's out. Obviously, that's a huge loss since she's the best player on the team. But still, that's no excuse. to get out rebounded like that, to get out hustled like that.
Right.
And with
And
the schedule that they've got, I mean, they just can't play like that.
And I think with Horston in Tennessee would have won. Still, you have to deal with players being out. You have to deal with that. So it's sad, but Indiana did win, and yeah, just after that run in the first quarter, it was the Lady Vols could never get ahead. Moving over to men's, both teams are actually in the Bahamas for Thanksgiving for this Thanksgiving week right here, and the men's took on Florida Gulf Coast. Last week, they won by quite a few, although it was kind of a rocky start for them. But in the end, they won. They beat them 81-50, and that was coming off their loss to Colorado from 78-66. But now they're taking on Butler in Battle for Atlantis, and the Lady Vols, I forgot to mention, are taking on. Oh my gosh,
Rutgers.
Yes, you're right, Rutgers. So that will be a good game. But moving on to men's, taking on Butler. And if anyone caught that Florida Gulf Coast game, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I can give a little piece on this. I mean, I think it's no surprise to most Tennessee fans that I have not been impressed with these Tennessee team through the first two games. I thought they were shooting the ball far too much from three and taking and forcing bad shots. I think they appeased that a little bit against Florida Gulf Coast. They kept it to 23 pointers, hit 8 of them, shot 40%, shot 49% from the field as well. They were effective. They were taking good shots. But with that being said, are my grievances fully appeased here? Definitely not. I mean, we're playing a Florida Gulf Coast team. I'm very interested to see how Tennessee fares here in Atlantis. They're going to have some chances to play some really great teams, potentially a matchup against Kansas as well as some others. I think it'll really test Tennessee and grow this team. That's what these preseason tournaments do. And you really kind of find out who these teams are. And it's a great molding spot because this Tennessee team is not where they want to be if they want to be competing in March right now. So this next week will be super formative, super important, and I think really kind of a deciding point, a turning point of this season. And that all larks kind of on how well they do in that tournament.
Yeah, Keegan, I was there, and I got to say, the lineup changes that Rick Barnes made, I think, were great because Josiah Jordan-James has been a great producer for this team offensively. He finished with 18 points. Tyreek Key wasn't as heavily involved, but I think it was still good to start him just to get a change in there. Olivier Kamwa really picked it up toward the end of the game. That was good. And Jemai Mashak, let's talk about him. He had his best game in a Tennessee uniform that night. So that's a guy that's just demanded more and more playing time. And maybe USC is just bad because Florida Gulf Coast beat this team in LA by 13. And, Tennessee might see USC this week in the Bahamas. That would be who they would play depending on what happens against Butler and the other game against BYU and USC. So, yeah, there's a lot of fascinating outcomes here.
Yeah, Butler facing off against Tennessee, both 2-1. Tennessee number 22. It should be good. Keithan, any last words about Tennessee basketball?
I just like to see mainly I just like to see somebody take over. It's kind of looking like everybody's just waiting to see, from my perspective when I watch the game, just waiting to see people take over. I know that we like to move and get the offense going and get the ball movement, but a lot of times you guys have to be aggressive and just take what the defense gives you instead of waiting for this a wide open look. So that'll just be something I'm interested to see, just to see who will take over this year.
Yeah, and just next week, huge week of college basketball. Even if you're not a fan, definitely tune in. All those feast week games. It's going to be some great stuff to watch during the day, at night, all times. Greatest college basketball week of the season.
Yep, super exciting things to come. Stay tuned to our show so you can catch up with all that. Yeah, Rock Solid Sports Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. And a huge thanks to our sponsor tonight, the Hill Bar and Grill, for supporting us and helping us keep our Friday show on the air. Stay tuned to Volunteer Radio 90.3 The Rock. The Funhouse is up next. 9.3 The Rock, rocking ears for 40 years.